Suburbia. And today's topic. Now, given my work experience so I've worked in the fitness industry for more than 10 years now, various different companies, various different locations, various different training opportunities, from a physical therapy office to running my own company out of different locations to working for a general fitness facility that's a bit larger than the others, in helping people actually come up with results. A major piece of what I constantly see missing. So my skill sets, I've become accustomed to basically their acquisitions. Now, it doesn't have to be like a real acquisition in a gym industry is going to be where the gym takes over another location that's not theirs or another company. That would be more of an acquisition. For me, it's an internal acquisition where a club needs to be straightened out and it needs somebody to come in and build it back up to make it efficient. So one of the things that I like to talk about right away when it comes to building up a culture, now this doesn't have to be gym related, it's just life related. So in your life, you're going to want to develop a culture around you that supports your opportunities for growth. I'll try to customize this in a way that works for both the gym as well. So the first thing that I always ask people when I'm training and developing and getting the facility righted is the question is, what is stress to you? And on an occupational level, what is stress to you? And you get various different answers. There's all kinds of different things that people say what stress is. They may even be able to recite the actual definition of what stress is. A manifestation in the body that triggers, or it's manifested in the body but not external. So it manifests as different hormone fluctuations, things like that. Also stimulating the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. It's predominantly stress triggers the sympathetic, not the parasympathetic. Not that that's all important for you right now, but the real benefit of stress is I look at it like tuition. And what it is you're paying tuition for the person that you're becoming. Now, you say you want to make changes, you're going to get transition stress. Transition stress is what takes place while you're going from one behavior to another behavior. It's important to understand stress because when you're changing behaviors, it is very beneficial to understand that there will be stress factors that come into play. And you don't want people to unhitch from the process as you're saving a location or building something in your life that you want to see come to be a reality. How do you enroll people into helping you? First off, again, understand transition stress is a real thing. They'll experience it, you'll experience it. As people in your life experience transition stress, is you change your behaviors in such a way that it stresses them a little. It may be microscopic, it might be massive, but usually it affects the way that they interact with you. When we want to change the culture, we want to address those areas that are going to be supportive for that culture to survive. All cultures, to me, especially in the industry that I worked in and still work in to a degree, you study, I look at culture as an animal, as one location to another. If there's, this particular company has multiple clubs, you study the animal, which is culture, to find out how to handle it, how to help domesticate it. You'll go in and try to use this wrecking ball approach. I'm changing everything. Too much transition stress, too little buy-in, increases pushback or just people giving up, which quitting and leaving. You don't want to create that kind of environment when there's plenty of opportunities to save individuals. You want to go through every means of trying to save people, and the employment concept. And the life concept, you just understand where to go whenever it's time to actually pull in a little bit of support or some sort of resource to help you continue the process. So culture is multifaceted. Now, whenever you're wanting to create culture, it's also going to be beneficial to understand elements for influence. And influence is not just inspiration. Influence is a little bit deeper. You can inspire somebody, but then it dies off over time and they may forget that you've inspired them. But influencing somebody can really last a lot longer. Now, when you understand influence, you have to go through its parts. It's not like, hey, go fix that culture. You don't do it that way. You have to look at every little element that's actually there so you can increase your buy-in percentage. And this, again, for your people in your life that you want to help support you as you make these changes in your life, you want this in understanding for influence. People will push back because they want you to stay who you are enough that they can recognize you. You don't change too much to where they don't recognize you as much, or you make them think more and change the way they behave around you. That's more caloric and energy required, as well as focus required. So it just changes how they live their life to a degree. Now, and that's each individual is different. It may be microscopic. Again, it may be massive. But people will push back. It's just a natural thing. Also, there's a good deal of people out there that don't like to see others become successful because it will remind them of the lack of their own success. You did it, but I couldn't do it, kind of thing. They may not always think that way, but the characteristics of thinking turns into that. So for influence, we want to understand rapport. Now, my working definition for rapport, and what I mean by working definition versus the textbook definition, is that this is something that's actively working in my life. Because with the textbook, you can, with the dictionary, you can end up with multiple different definitions, and people will circle around the ones that seem to fit the best for the time being, or they like their pet definition. I like the working definition because it's something easier when it's understood. Plenty of people have working definitions, they just don't necessarily call it that. It's like colloquialisms, if you will. It's a colloquial definition, which is a local definition or a small group definition, not a large group, or a large group supported idea where it's like, okay, well, that's the definition now. So rapport is a commonality and interest in another person. So it's having commonality with somebody else and also being truly interested in who they are. So that's the rapport variables. You want to build rapport because rapport has other elements that come from it. You being a charming human being, charm comes from rapport. It's really hard not to be it's really hard to be charming without having rapport variables. Actually, I'd argue that it's impossible to be. Partnership follows the rapport element. This partnership, you can have transitional partnership where you have no care about the other person other than the outcome. You both share a desire. But if you want a real lasting one that actually has a longer, more in-depth connection, you're going to want to look for the partnership that has rapport built into it, that has the care for the other person. But that's also working together on a common goal. Accomplishing that is also understanding where they currently are, where they want to be, so they know that you're an interested party versus, oh, will you just help me? No one really likes somebody who begs. There's variables in that I'll go into at another time. We'll go for a different topic on that one. But for overall, the people don't like other people that beg because it shows that the person wants something enough, but they're not willing to work for it. Now, there's other variables there. The person may not be structured in a way to accomplish it, which is arguably the truth. They may have mental issues and things like that where they're not necessarily fully mentally healthy. There's things like that also come into play, like people that are homeless, that kind of thing. I'm not saying be heartless. I'm just saying that people do get easily turned off to people that beg. All right. Now, when you understand what their goals are, what their direction that they want to see as far as their success models, you want to be able to understand their vision, what that looks like. And then from that, they know you're interested enough to understand their vision, not just I got a goal. Because there's a goal and then there's a vision. And the vision is more of the fleshed out concept of a goal, where you say, well, that's really interesting. Tell me more about that. That's interesting. Tell me more about it. And really getting something concrete, something tangible, near tangible, where you can almost hold it kind of thing. That's where you really build a great deal of value with the other person. Now, with this, I really intend all of this to come across as being absolutely sincere. I'm not a fan of creating a falsehood in, oh, I'm going to support you just long enough so that you can support me, because that's not a culture. What that is it's strip mining. You've conned them into believing that you're supportive, and then you're just going to bail out on them once that you've used them up. And that's not conducive for long-term success, because it shows that you've made them a single serving. So what do you think they're going to do for you in the future? At the same time, this is all about our community and developing ourselves in a way that we all can see an outcome that we want. Now, vision is going to be, once you understand their vision, it's time to enroll them in yours so that they can also understand it. Like, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my visions as well, like what I'd like to see come to fruition. All right. Now, when it also comes to this, and you're going to be supporting people in the process of making change, understand strengths and weaknesses. You can do things with your friends that say, you know your friend's strengths and weaknesses. There's SWOT analysis. There's all kinds of different ways. DISC assessments. There's all kinds of different personality studies out there or tests to find out where you come in with which type of personality traits you do really well with and where you can work on yourself. So strengths and weaknesses. And I posed a question with a group of individuals recently, and there's really no wrong answer with this. But the question was, where should you start? Should you start with somebody with a strength or with a weakness? And what one's more beneficial for you to build up? And especially dealing with teams, so multiple people. Which way's the best way to do it? Now, most people are not really that versed in being able to develop another person in a way that is long-term successful. They may be able to say, okay, that did great, high five, and then you move on. There's other pieces to that. So there's a lot of people that they can learn the process of helping support and develop another person by simply getting used to getting the win. And what I mean by getting the win is every time somebody sets out to accomplish something, they accomplish it, they then have won. Now you get a lot of the endorphin values that come out of that. You get a dopamine rush or a boost, right? Not necessarily a rush, but a boost. And what that does is it makes you feel really good. It makes you feel like, hey, I did something, and it's instantaneous. They get validated, but at the same time, they have a validation. Even if it's a small win, you also get a validation that you help support and develop them to a degree. Then you want to go for a secondary strength. My advice in this process is have them list out whatever strengths they have, because this is a partnership of growth. It's not just like randomly grab a friend of yours and say, oh, let's go work together, or I'm going to throw a bunch of questions at you. It's more of take these steps, build rapport, then get into your partnership, work on vision, and then you start into the development phases where you guys can work together in supporting and developing something. So with this, you get to the point where you have their understanding about where they're at, what their strengths are. You give them, you guys come up with something and say, okay, well, you're really good at following up on things. Here, on average, how much follow-up are you comfortable with on a daily basis? Great. Let's add one to that. Let's do one more follow-up than what you would have done had you not had this goal. And that gives you a small win. It may not seem like much. It may not be enough to really make them feel a win. You may say 5 more contacts to follow up. And then we'll celebrate the win. It's not something that they're weak in, but it is something more than they did the day before. And then you can celebrate that. If you understand their next strengths, the goal is to recognize a strength in them they don't necessarily understand themselves, and then help them identify, like say, you know what, I see this as a strength of yours. And you're like, oh, really? You think so? Yeah, or some other variation of that. Then you have them take on that new task. Whatever it is, find a task, something that is associated with this other strength that you realize they have that they don't necessarily realize. From there, you can apply the challenge, which is not really that much of a challenge, but it's still a challenge. But it's a bigger win because it's something that's not necessarily on the forefront of their thought of a strength. Then they say, oh, you know what? I actually am not that bad at that. And you can celebrate the win there, which is awesome job, man. You really, this is going to help so much in the future we're creating. And then you keep working down to the point you get to the weaknesses. The reason why going for a strength instead of the weakness first is if you're not practiced in the wins and you're not practiced in helping people understand how to take on challenges, this will give you a step-by-step easy process to get used to it, so that in time you'll get to the point that even the weaknesses are no challenge. Or they're much less of a challenge, because you have different experiences of winning. Winning always makes people feel really good. The harder the challenge, the more the reward when it's overcome, but it takes time to get to that. because you're looking at a very big outcome. I've never did this before, and I just did it. I never thought I'd be able to, but I just did it. It's like somebody in the gym that wants to press 350 pounds, but they weigh 160 pounds, and they've never lifted in a day in their life. They're like, I want to bench 350 pounds. Well, you go through all the process of getting to know the person, all that, but you damn sure don't put them underneath the bench and put 350 pounds in a bar and then help them get it off the rack and see if they can do it. You don't do that. You work them up. Same thing with this, but this is working them up as well as working you up. It builds your confidence in supporting people, and it builds their confidence in being able to execute. This is beneficial because it helps you learn how to help work with other people to the point that there's a contribution that returns itself. You will have the time when it's good to ask for something. Like, yeah, can you help me with this? You're getting much stronger in that area. Would you mind helping me in my area so that I can make some progress here as well? It's just up to however you have that agreement, but make an agreement with this individual or these individuals. Better off it's this individual first, master it all the way down to being able to overcome a weakness, and then go into multiple people at once. And as you build up your team for change, because this is really beneficial for building teams of change, everybody comes with their own skills, their own strengths, their own weaknesses. Everybody has them. If you pull together a group of people that have vision for what you want to accomplish, then the world starts to turn in the effect of that being accomplished. It takes time, and everybody has their own individual time. But if you spend every day, just even if it's 1 minute a day, developing yourself to get better towards your goal, in 1 year, you will have surmounted quite a change vehicle. It's inevitable. You will find that sometimes you go down the wrong path. That's okay. It's not wrong. The only way we'd call it wrong is if you did it and you kept doing it, even though you know that you shouldn't. And even then, you're just sitting in a pressure cooker. You just needed to go through it again, get the hardships again, so that you can finally get off of it or figure out a way of not going that route or how to become more functional if you take that route. It's not really a wrong thing to stop over. It just may be it may be pushing you back or away from a deadline. That's the only thing that would be wrong, would be the variable about moving away from a deadline, because the deadline's set. Now what's right is the actions necessary to get to that deadline. That's it. I'm not talking about moral things, nothing like that. I'm talking about goal setting and goal accomplishment and that kind of function. So building up your culture is going to be significantly beneficial, because your culture will start to grow around you as you develop the people around you and show that you care for their success as much as they care for yours. They will start to care for your success as well. You don't want to say, I'm just going to martyr this as well, or just go altruistically into martyrdom, which is, I'm not going to ask for anything. I'm not going to ask for anything. I'm not going to ask for anything. I'm going to keep helping you. Going to keep helping you. And then finally you're like, well, you know what? I really could have used some help on this, but nobody stepped up. You do need to know how to ask. You need to ask how to, or get people enrolled. So culture is an interesting animal. Culture is also something that'll keep things lasting for you for a long time. It's like this morning, not as a brag for myself, and I did share this on my call earlier. I had one of the members in one of the clubs that I haven't been at in 3 years contact me and told me how much they miss me and how much they appreciate the work that I did at that club, and they really wish that I would be able to come back. And I understand, but that's also because of the culture that was created. Now that culture is still alive. It's morphed over the years, but it still had enough of itself to be able to survive and then to be able to be managed by good quality managers. But it did take something to build that. Now with this, if you want to create change, create the culture around you for change. It'll invoke change around you. Also, if you take it on this way, you'll start to develop the skill sets that make this more comfortable. This is not something that's impossible. The thing is, you want to, what I really like, and at the same time it's kind of grotesque. How do you eat an elephant? And how you eat an elephant is one bite at a time. That's it. Drink from a garden hose or a fire hose. Most people do better in incremental changes. Even people are like, oh no, I really like to take on the big task all at once and then make all that great change. The reality is those people typically aren't the ones that really succeed. They just succeed in the early stages, but then fall off and sometimes get so burnt they don't want to go back to it. So if you take this as an incremental change and you allot yourself the time per day to focus on developing yourself, whatever that is, it's all about budgeting. It'll help you get where you want to be. Now, again, I don't have all the answers for everything, but I do have some of these rudimentary or functional foundation type of systems in place to help me grow what I want to see the world turn into, which is something where more like this, we're all supporting each other to develop and grow. But it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes facing a fear. So with that, as far as building a culture, there's quite a bit to it. But at the same time, it's really not that challenging. Just try not to look at it for being the big concept without definition. So for me, a culture has multiple things under it that are beneficial to define before you define what culture is. Because there's pieces that are manipulatable in a way that if you look at it just as being culture and not the details of it, then it's something that's easy to get away from you. But when you understand that lower level or the multiple things that create what we call culture, then you can say, okay, I can help with this variable, I can help with that variable, and this other variable I'm going to need some help with myself. So you look at it that way, and that's what I mean by manipulating those variables underneath the title culture. Not about manipulating a human or another person in any kind of negative way. All right, guys, that's it for right now. I didn't want to go on too long about it, but at the same time, introduce it. By all means, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Also the podcast, the podcast as well. You can listen to it on a daily basis, however you choose. Also suggest this video to people that you want to see some change in their life or they've been struggling to make change. A lot of times people get frustrated. They take out that frustration through anger, hostility, aggression. That's really because they've just had this frustration that never got a vehicle to get them where they want to be. And that's the purpose of this program and these videos is to help us develop that. Support this in any way that you want. Comment in the comment section. That'll help me understand the engagement level so that I can better help kind of curtail the videos in a way that may be more desirable for you. Or if nothing else, feedback, what you're taking away from it. That's one that I really love. Takeaways. What are you taking from this video so that we can say, okay, well, I missed that point, or no, I was really good. I like that, or whatever it is. So, all right. Until next time, think critically. We're all in this together. Let's make this something that really changes the world for us. Again, this is Chad Broshears, and this is Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. Until next time.